Hey, y'all, it's Brandon Adams, and welcome to DawgNation Daily here on this Thursday. We are the daily podcast for Georgia Bulldogs fans. We're glad you're with us on video, whether you're watching us on Facebook Live or on YouTube. We're just thankful that you're with us on the program today. We're actually going to have some really fun stuff. Seth Emerson later on, a lot on Georgia spring practice with him. We're going to begin the show, though, with some pretty fascinating video. We were talking about this before the show started. Bill Belichick, the New England Patriots coach, you may have heard at Georgia Pro Day yesterday, getting hands-on with some of the Georgia players like Roquan Smith and Davin Bellamy and Lorenzo Carter. This is really good stuff, and it's probably really good news for Georgia, too, in terms of the commercial it produces for the program. And, oh, yeah, speaking on that note, a lot of national media attention on Georgia after yesterday, all of it good. We'll talk about it all next as DawgNation Daily begins right now.
Presented by DawgNation.com, this is DawgNation Daily, the daily podcast for Georgia Bulldogs fans. Here's your host, Brandon Adams.
As a general rule, I am not a huge follower of the NFL and not in any way, shape, or form enamored with the NFL draft the way that a lot of people are this time of year. I find a lot of draft media to be pretty tedious, but obviously as a Georgia fan, I'm always happy to see Georgia players go on to success at the NFL level, and a big part of that is the Pro Day event that takes place at all the major schools around this time of year. Georgia had its Pro Day yesterday, and we'll talk to Seth Emerson a little bit more about it when he joins us later on. He was there. Obviously, some all-time great Bulldogs getting ready to have a big-time moment maybe to come in professional football, but there was a unique moment yesterday for these guys as they sort of audition their NFL talents. We'll show you some of the video if you're watching, and this may be one of those days that if you're a radio listener or a podcast listener, maybe you want to dial up our show at some point in time on demand, either on YouTube or Facebook Live, because Seth Emerson, who was there in the indoor facility yesterday for the UGA Pro Day, caught Bill Belichick, the New England Patriots coach, and there were representatives from all 32 teams at UGA Pro Day yesterday, but Belichick in particular kind of got hands-on. If you're watching us on video right now, you see Belichick kind of leading a drill. You're about to see Roquan Smith in a moment knock Paul Pasqualoni down, who is Pasqualoni's the NFL assistant now, former Syracuse head coach. He's sort of holding the pad here for one of the drills. When Roquan gets in there to do the drill with Belichick sort of counting him down to a start, Roquan knocks Pasqualoni right off his feet. Well, if you know anything about Roquan Smith, it's sort of exactly what you would expect about that. I mean, it's really kind of cool to see these Georgia linebackers in this moment kind of doing what they're doing and getting the extra attention from Bill Belichick here. Pretty fascinating stuff, and if you're watching on video, I think you would agree this is the kind of thing that you don't see often, but I guess the Georgia linebackers themselves are sort of worthy of getting this kind of attention from Belichick, even if a guy like Roquan Smith is not going to be available when Belichick's team, the New England Patriots, pick near the end of the first round. He's obviously curious about what a lot of these guys bring to the table. There's information to be gleaned here that can be used for years and years if you're a guy like Bill Belichick. And if you're a program like the University of Georgia, I think the connection here to recruiting is obvious. I mean, everything that Kirby Smart does, everything that the program kind of puts out there is sort of, attention gathering in a way to sort of earn favor with 2019 recruits or 2020 recruits. And the video we just showed of Bill Belichick is certainly an example of that. And Kirby Smart, talked about this yesterday when he briefly met with the media that, maybe getting a guy like Belichick involved in what's going on at practice is maybe not quite as unique as it seems to someone like me who doesn't get to see this all the time. Here is Kirby on Bill Belichick.
It's pretty common. I know the year I spent there, it's really just whoever wants to jump out there and do it. I know he's got a passion. He loves the game. He loves coaching. So it's a chance for him to get out there and coach guys and make them better and evaluate talent.
Yeah, so listen, I mean, at one point in time, in another one of these drills, you even kind of got in there and you saw, it's another pad drill, but you kind of got in there and you saw Belichick actually instructing. This is more than just talent evaluation and seeing what Carter and Bellamy and Roquan, those guys, brought to the table. It got to the actual instruction point, the actual, same coaching points, I'm assuming, that Belichick would give to his New England Patriots players. He's giving those to Georgia players during the Georgia Pro Day yesterday. Kirby Smart also described a little bit of kind of what that was like for Belichick and kind of what he was doing and kind of why all this is happening. Here's Kirby again.
He did a lot of drills that were recognition drills, which what we're always trying to do is how do you respond when somebody moves. You don't ever get to see that at a combine. You're just running around hoops, running through bags, running 40s, jumping. But the game of football is a reaction game. So when a guy moves, what do you do? And I think that's what he's trying to simulate, and it's a great drill.
You see Davin Bellamy there on your screen if you're watching on video, and I had a chance to talk to Davin the other night kind of away from the crowd at DawgNation Appreciation. We were talking about his draft future a little bit, and one of the things that he told me, and this made a strong impression on me, is he wasn't bragging or kind of making himself sound too studious or anything like that, but you could just really tell in the course of our conversation that he was really trying to soak up as much instruction as he could get as he gets ready to move on to the NFL. That sort of position-specific coaching was something that he was looking for. He's been doing some individual work with Chuck Smith, who here in the Atlanta area where I live is a former Atlanta Falcons great. Chuck's worked with a lot of pass rushers, and you could tell that Davin was trying to soak up everything he could get from Chuck, and I would imagine much the same way to have Bill Belichick kind of getting in there and sort of explaining specific coaching points. That's just a really cool thing for a guy like Davin Bellamy and Carter and the rest of those guys. I'm sure they really enjoyed that. And as I said, it becomes a really great commercial for the Georgia program moving forward of, hey, come to our program, have success for 3 or 4 years. Then on your pro day, there's a chance that in our own indoor practice facility, you may get some one-on-one attention from Bill Belichick. He may coach you up. He may evaluate you. And who knows, maybe one day like David Boss Andrews and Malcolm Mitchell, maybe you're actually playing for the New England Patriots. It's kind of a cool thing to think about. And for Georgia players yesterday, I'm sure that was a pretty cool experience. But that was not the only thing that was good about the Georgia Pro Day yesterday. It's a long list of guys who were contributing here. Many of them expect to be very good NFL players. In the case of Roquan Smith, definitely going to be a first-round pick. I have very little doubt that he will go sometime before the top 15 is done. I can't imagine he's still sitting there at pick 15 in the NFL draft. And, depending on who you listen to from time to time, there's a chance that Isaiah Wynn sneaks into the first round. There's a chance that Lorenzo Carter, I've seen some mock drafts where Carter sneaks in the first round. Obviously, Chubb and Michelle are both thought to have outstanding NFL careers upcoming. It's a big day for Georgia players who all hope to play on Sundays, and that got the attention of some of the national media, including Marcus Spears. And our buddy Bassin Dog tweeted this out, and I caught wind of that from his tweet. I wanted to give you a little of the audio on the show here. Spears as an ESPN SEC Network analyst. The SEC Network is paying a little bit of attention to the Georgia Pro Day yesterday, and what Spears said about Georgia on Pro Day was that it's the kind of message, I think, to the rest of college football that in terms of future NFL talent, there's plenty of it at Georgia, and these kind of high-profile pro days in Athens, this is the kind of thing that's not going away anytime soon. Listen to Marcus Spears and the way that he raves about Georgia here.
I'm just excited about Georgia football and their program. Look, they have 7 first-rounders in the last 10 years. That number is about to start going up. It has a lot to do with what Kirby Smart is doing at Georgia, but they're attracting those type of players with that potential to have these type of pro days. I don't remember a Georgia pro day being this covered since I've been here. And I know they've had a lot of really good players, but I think people just start getting used to seeing Georgia in these pro days with a lot of dudes with the potential to go in day one.
So there's a thought that I have when I hear Marcus Spears, and to be honest with it, actually just popped in my mind as I'm listening to it here live during the show right now. I think there's this criticism that comes sometimes of the national media for being biased, and you see this time of year when it comes to, like, say, Duke basketball in the NCAA tournament. Oh, the media hypes up Duke all the time and actually helps Duke with recruiting because they're always getting such national media attention. You might say the same thing about Kentucky basketball as well. A lot of times it's said that about Alabama football, that the SEC Network spends too much time praising Alabama, and it ends up being sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy that the SEC Network says good things about Alabama, more young players end up going to Alabama, and the media predictions always come true because they're the one with the big old bullhorn sort of broadcasting this message over and over again. But what you see right there from Marcus Spears is that there's not necessarily any kind of bias in favor of one team over another, but there is, I think, a natural bias that exists within media, and that is a bias towards hype. The media loves hyping things up, and listen, y'all listen to DawgNation daily every day. You may watch me on SEC Country Live as well. You know that I'm not immune to this kind of stuff either. I am also the kind of person that just sort of naturally veers in the direction of sort of hype and just big talk and who's the next big thing and all the good things that are going to happen. When you hear Marcus Spears saying that kind of stuff about Georgia, what you see is that if you do create a ruckus, if you do produce the kind of roster that's about to send a lot of guys in the NFL, that the national media is going to notice that. They are going to give you a bunch of attention. And when Marcus Spears goes on TV and says things like that, well, it does become for Georgia its own version of that same self-fulfilling prophecy where more and more talent's probably coming to the program. There is a little bit of a cycle that gets started with pro days like the one that Georgia had yesterday. You bring in guys like Bill Belichick. You have Belichick doing the instruction. That shows up on social media all over the place. And all of a sudden, 2019, 2020 recruits say, you know what, maybe I want to be a part of that future. Maybe I want to go be a part of where the buzz is with Marcus Spears talking about on the SEC SEC network. But ultimately, the bottom line for me on the entire discussion is the actual substance of what Spears says there, I think is really true. There probably has been a dearth of Georgia players in the NFL draft in the high rounds over the last few years, especially at some of the real key positions like offensive line. We've talked about that plenty. Maybe some of the other spots where Georgia just hasn't produced quite enough elite first-round type talents. But take a look at this roster moving forward. The number 3 class in the country for 2017, those guys are coming in their own. The number 1 class in the country for 2018, those guys are arriving on campus or will be later on this summer. 2019's recruiting class may be better than all of them. Pretty soon, it's going to be the kind of roster where first-round picks do happen with regularity. And at that point in time, even more national attention's coming Georgia's way as it does truly build the program that Kirby Smart has had envisioned the entire time. My name is Brandon Adams, and this is DawgNation Daily, the daily podcast for Georgia Bulldogs fans. Thank you so much for being with us today. As I said, today probably a good day, if you have a chance to check us out a little bit on video with the great stuff there from Bill Belichick and the UGA Pro Day. You can also go to the DawgNation Facebook page and just see the videos themselves. Seth Emerson shot those. They are there for you in the video section there on the DawgNation Facebook page. You can also check out some stuff from our recruiting show from Monday Night Before the Hedges, Hannah Chalker and Jeff Sintel doing that. That's all pretty much there for you on the DawgNation Facebook page. You can check out all of that. And, of course, you can watch us live at 10 a.m. along with the DawgNation YouTube page every single day as well. Or you can listen to us on the radio at noon on Athens Sports Radio 960 The Ref. You can listen to us in podcast form, Apple Podcasts, the Android devices, the world-famous DawgNation.com. We try to make DawgNation Daily as easy for you to find as you possibly can be. And, of course, a lot of the guys that you just saw in those videos from UGA's Pro Day yesterday were also part of our DawgNation Appreciation last Thursday. We continue to be happy about everything that went down there and so grateful to the sponsors who made it possible. Our friends at Kroger, Marlowe's Tavern, the Atlanta Braves. By the way, speaking of the Braves, I don't know if y'all are aware of this, but if you go to the Clubhouse store there at SunTrust Park in the Battery, Atlanta, one of the things that you will see is they've got some Braves branded merchandise that also has the Georgia G on it as well. It's essentially like red and black hats, red and black T-shirts with the Braves logo in the red and black with the Georgia logo on the side. I've tweeted pictures of this before. It is really cool stuff. If you're both a Braves fan and a Georgia fan, you want to make sure that you check that out. We were really, really happy to have the Atlanta Braves with us last week for a DawgNation Appreciation. Of course, Online Trading Academy. Make sure you check out Bulls and Bears on News 95.5 and AM 750 WSB. It's Saturday at 7 p.m., Sunday at 6 p.m. You know, how do you handle your 401k? How do you build the best retirement? How do you navigate what has been a really tricky financial market here for really seemingly the last years upon years. Well, Online Trading Academy going to help you do that. The radio program Bulls and Bears, the great way to access that on AM 750 WSB and News 95.5. Also want to thank Tailgate Apparel for being with us last week at DawgNation Appreciation as well. I wore my Tailgate Apparel cardigan yesterday. Y'all always give me compliments when I wear that, and I really appreciate that. You'll like all that great retro gear at Tailgate, especially when you kind of have what is it called, like like Blackberry winter or something like that. I guess this is not black. This is just like regular winter. But when it's kind of cold outside and you want to feel a little toasty and warm, throw in a great Tailgate Apparel sweatshirt. That is a great way to do that. We will have Seth Emerson in just a moment, as I said. I want to let you hear, though, a little bit more from Kirby Smart from yesterday at a UGA Pro Day because, he met with the media briefly. Most of the conversation was about, obviously, the guys were about to go to the NFL. But one subject did come up was the belief by, some of the offensive linemen that the standard that they set for the program in 2017, playing at such a high level, a guy like Isaiah Wynn, who was at Pro Day yesterday, getting ready to go on to the NFL, that standard becomes something that the 2018 offensive line is now going to work hard to match, and sort of a new standard has been set for the Georgia offensive line. Kirby Smart was asked about that, and I thought he gave an interesting answer.
Yeah, it's a different group because I don't think anybody's in there from the first year, so it's completely different because I'm pretty sure, Lamont might have been in the mix, but other than that, it's all new guys, and I think there's a camaraderie any offensive line group I've been around, but Coach Pittman does a tremendous job of them having pride in their double teams, pride in their points, them working to the second level. But they work as a unit as good as any group I've been around, and they take a lot of pride in that.
So Kirby didn't want to give full voice to what maybe the question was that, hey, is the 2017 offensive line the line that changed Georgia? But it's pretty clear that it is. Now, Kirby will talk about the personnel change, but it's also an attitude change as well. And one of the reasons why we talk so much about the Georgia offensive line here right now in DawgNation Daily is because I think it also potentially aids the transition at running back as well. I mean, a lot has been said about the departure of Nick Chubb, the departure of Sony Michel, and how do those new guys perform? Well, when Chip Towers was on with us on DawgNation Daily on Monday, Chip said he doesn't think, and I agree with him on this, he doesn't think that the running game for Georgia in 2018 is likely to skip a beat. Here is Chip.
It shouldn't. A lot of that comes down to talent and philosophy. Georgia's philosophy is to run the football. Kirby Smart's philosophy is to run the football. Then you got to have somebody to run it with, and all indications are you've got that. In DeAndre Swift and even Elijah Holyfield and Brian Harrion, but then these new guys coming in, you're just talking about a very high pedigree of tailback, and Georgia recruits enough of them at the standpoint that the cream is always going to rise. In fact, there's always going to be enough competition where it's going to present itself in good time. So I don't know if Georgia will have another two tailbacks who can combine for over 8,000 yards in their career out of the bunch that we have gathering right here. But the talent and the commitment to running the football should be there.
I agree with Chip on that, but the point I would also add to that is what we were just saying about the offensive line. Because of the new standard that's been set by the Georgia offensive line, I think it makes it easier for those running backs like DeAndre Swift, like Brian Harrion, like Elijah Holyfield, the incoming freshmen James Cook and Zamir White. I think their task is also made easier just based on the fact that all of a sudden the Georgia offensive line is performing at such a high level. I think that's an interesting thing to watch here this spring and moving forward for Georgia. By the way, let me also remind you the DawgNation Daily is brought to you in part today by my friends at MyBookie. Check them out online at mybookie.ag, especially with the hardwood action getting going again this weekend. Your first deposit can be matched up to 50% when you use the promo code DawgNation. You can play, you can win, you can get paid. Use the promo code DawgNation, all one word. The website, mybookie.ag. Point spreads, money lines, over-unders, in-game wagering, it's all there for you. Promo code DawgNation. First deposit can be matched up to 50% at the website, mybookie.ag. Great to have you with us here today on DawgNation Daily. Hope you enjoy Seth Emerson right now.
From Athens and across the SEC or wherever the recruiting trail may lead, here's a DawgNation.com insider.
We'll say hello to Seth Emerson here on DawgNation Daily. Lot of ground to cover here, whether it is the spring practice, pro day from yesterday, a lot of good stuff. And Seth, if you don't mind, let me start with what I thought was a really fascinating video that you shot for DawgNation.com of Bill Belichick at the Georgia Pro Day yesterday, kind of instructing. I know Kirby Smart talked about this a little bit after it was over with. Kind of give us a description of kind of how this came to be, that Belichick sort of hops out of the crowd of scouts and NFL personnel and starts actually giving some hands-on instruction there. What was it like to see that in person, and kind of how did all this unfold?
Well, he's been there before. Belichick has been. I want to say third, fourth time he's come, but like a lot of coaches that come to these GMs, he just kind of hangs back, and he's just kind of evaluating, talking to other people, and you just kind of get a shot of him and in the crowd, and it's like, okay, all right, Bill Belichick was here, that's it. So yesterday, and then the media tends to be kind of put off into a corner, not really a corner, but we're kind of on a sideline, and we know that things are kind of getting near an end, and the four linebackers, Reggie Carter, Lorenzo Carter, Bellamy, and I'm already blanking, Roquan Smith. Oh yeah, that guy.
How quickly we forget.
They get their jackets off, and it looks like they're going to do something. And then all of a sudden, like, Bill Belichick and Matt Patricia start kind of walking over and, like, grabbing the, whatever you call those things, the big tackling dummies, or just that equipment that they use. And it's like, oh. And it was happening, like, right in front of us in the corner that we were at. And at first, it just looks like, oh, it's just running them through, like, one or two things, but it's happening right in front of us, and we're all taking out our cameras and videoing it and be like, okay, this is worth it. And then it just kept going. You didn't expect it to stop. And then they told us, all right, Isaiah Wynn's over here to talk, and I'd wanted to talk to Isaiah for a while about the torn labrum thing. So I'm like, well, I guess I've got enough of Bill Belichick working with Roquan Smith. He had knocked over Pal Pasqualoni, the former UConn and Syracuse coach. I'd gotten video of that and something. That's okay. So I go over to talk to Isaiah Wynn, and we wrap up talking with him after about 5 or 6 minutes. We turn around, and Belichick is still working with those four guys. So we got a little bit of that too, and it was just something that I think he wanted to do. It is kind of a reminder that as much money as these guys earn, as much fame as they get, these guys at heart are in this business because of what they like to do, and he likes to coach. And you saw Bill Belichick is kind of a hands-on guy. The same way you know, when I've been in Alabama practices, you see Nick Saban literally throwing footballs during drills and just being so active. You know, Kirby Smart doing the same thing. I mean, these guys are football coaches, and that's what they do, and they like to do it. Doesn't mean that he's going to trade up to get Roquan, which is what he would have to do, the Patriots. So with the Lions, I guess. It doesn't mean that he's going to pick any of the other three guys. It just means that he liked being there and drilling those guys and doing that kind of thing.
The optics of this are so good for Georgia. The cynical part of me almost wants to say, are the theatrics almost too good? But it sounds like you think this is like a totally unplanned thing, totally off the cuff. This just sort of all unfolded organically because if you're Georgia, I mean, it's the best commercial you'd ever have, right?
Well, Kirby actually said it was pretty common. That he's been through some of these pro days and a lot of these pro days that he sees these coaches hop in there. I had never seen it like that at Georgia. I mean, it is kind of, you know, they do have, for people that have never been to these things, and that is most people because they're closed to the media, or except the media and other people that are there participating in it. It's not like Georgia is running this and the other people are watching. The coaches and the personnel people, the NFL people run it. The Georgia people, the coaches, Kirby Smart, they actually stand back and just watch and observe. This is just taking place at UGA and with the former UGA players, now former UGA players, but it's being run by NFL people. This was the first time I'd remembered a head coach, and it ended up being two head coaches, jumping in and running a drill themselves. But usually it always is an NFL person that's running it themselves.
Let me transition to spring practice here for a moment. I like the piece that you wrote the other day about the transition to sort of new leadership and a new team at Georgia after we've had sort of the same spokespeople for Georgia seemingly the last few years, and sort of a new group of guys who'll be doing that. And one of those guys apparently is going to be Jonathan Ledbetter. I know that Kirby Smart, when he spoke to the media, talked about Ledbetter a good bit the other day. And it's a pretty neat story, isn't it, that Ledbetter, given where he was with sort of an uncertain future in football with his off-field issues that he was dealing with a couple years ago, to the point now where, I mean, I sort of think of him as a fan as one of the real centerpieces of this defense and one of those new leaders that's likely to emerge. This is a pretty nice evolution for Ledbetter into a more cemented status as a player, is it not?
Right, and it was something that it's not that he's kind of developed into this either. He was always someone that was known as kind of a leader type, good talker, that kind of thing. He just ran into some trouble off the field, and it seems like that he's gotten through it the same way that the team is hoping that Natrez Patrick is getting through it. Natrez Patrick's kind of the same guy. He's also somebody that, from a media standpoint, we like talking to him because he's smart, has good things to say, he's interesting to talk to. In the same way, I guess they're hoping D'Angelo Gibbs gets through it eventually. It's nice, and Ledbetter. The main thing I want to ask him at some point is what the deal is with his glasses. They're these big, wide frames that look like the kind Lawrence Fishburne wore in the early 90s in Boys in the Hood. They're seemingly very out of style, yet he's out there wearing them and rocking them and making them work. So I think I'm going to have plenty of time to ask him that because he's going to be one of these core guys that they're going to have us talk to about 5 times a week.
I have to say, I do like the spectacles look on Ledbetter. As you said, he sort of makes that work. I don't know if it's sort of a Clark Kent changing to Superman type thing, or if it's just sort of a studious look. But I got to tell you, I think the eyeglasses kind of work on Ledbetter a bit.
Yeah, I've tried to see if I'm so out of step now. I depend on my wife to tell me what's in style and stuff. And she's a professor, and she's on campus, and she sees all the young kids every day now. But I don't know if they're actually coming back somehow, but I haven't seen other people wear them. So I think Ledbetter's making his own statement, and good for him.
Absolutely. There has been some chatter in our comment section on DawgNation Daily over the last few days about the shifting of offensive responsibilities. James Coley now working with the quarterbacks. Jim Chaney's still the offensive coordinator, but working with tight ends. And my assumption has always been that was almost all solely in an effort to keep Coley, give him the raise, justify that with a little bit of a responsibility shift, and not really that much of a statement about any kind of dissatisfaction with the Georgia offense. Kirby Smart also spoke about this on Tuesday a little bit, and I don't know. he said something to the effect of, hey, we're always trying to get better on offense, but this is more about keeping Coley than being dissatisfied with Chaney, correct?
I would say it's pretty much 100% that. They wanted to keep Coley. There's always been a big emphasis from Kirby Smart on recruiting. It's shown in how they've recruited lately. And the question I had, especially in 2016, was how would this actually affect the on-field performance? Would it be too geared towards recruiting and you're not able to coach them up and develop them well? They kind of answered that question in 2017, won an SEC and a Rose Bowl and nearly won the national championship. Now we're going to have to watch going forward. Like, how does this affect development of quarterbacks? How is James Coley different than Jim Chaney? Because, I don't know. I haven't had a chance to really delve into it, but does Jim Chaney still get involved in the quarterback room? This is a guy who's developed a lot of quarterbacks over the years, and how does that dynamic work now? With it's James Coley's room, but does he still say, "Hey, Jim, come over here"? And Jay Johnson's there too, still in an off-field role. Really interesting dynamic going forward.
Last summer, Isaiah Wilson was a guy that got a little bit of criticism from time to time from Kirby Smart publicly, saying he practiced indoors better than outdoors, for instance. That seemed to be a suggestion about conditioning and handling the heat. Yet, for spring practice, he's the first-team right tackle, at least in the visible portion of the practice that you got to see. Do you get the sense that Wilson's kind of turned a corner here, that he's a little bit like the redshirt version of Ben Cleveland from 2017, that he used the year of watching to be in better shape and be ready to go, or is it just still too early to tell?
Yeah, it might. I don't know that Kirby really publicly criticized. I think it was just kind of saying, look, he's not playing yet because there's an adjustment weather-wise, and he's not really. There just wasn't a spot for him really, with the way that Andrew Thomas performed and the way the guard spots shook out. So, but I do think the Ben Cleveland analogy is a good one. They both redshirted, and I don't know that means competition from Caden Mays. I don't know if someone along the lines of Kendall Baker last year that has been around campus for a while and we've kind of forgotten about will also kind of make a move. But if that's going to happen, it's going to happen in the spring. Kendall Baker, I think, actually made that move, I think, early preseason last year. But, yeah, right now, Isaiah Wilson's running first team, and if you had to say, sitting here on March 22nd, who's going to be the starter against Austin Peay, I would tentatively pencil him in, but definitely pencil with Cade Mays sitting there. Ray and Jamari Sawyer coming in the summer, even though he's a guard in the center and interior lineman. And they say right now Ben Cleveland is a guard. They like him there. You never know how it could shake out. Jamari Sawyer could come in, be too good not to play, but Solomon Kinley and Ben Cleveland both play well. Well, then maybe Solomon Kinley or Ben Cleveland go to tackle. So the nice thing for them is they got a lot of options there.
Speaking of Jamari Sawyer, you wrote a really interesting piece about the freshmen that are likely to play this season, and one of the things that kind of came to my mind from reading that is, okay, so last year not being an early enrollee didn't hurt Andrew Thomas. He ended up being the starting right tackle, but if you look at inside linebacker, Monty Rice going through spring practice may have given him a leg up over Nate McBride. When you think about guys like Sawyer and Tyson Campbell who will be here this summer, how much are they challenged to earn early playing time compared to Devod Wilson, who's here right now, and Cade Mays, who's here right now? How much does spring help freshmen get on the field in your mind?
Well, I mean, I hate to be wishy-washy, but sometimes it helps, sometimes it doesn't. Let's look back at the ones who were early enrolled last year. Maybe it helped Monty Rice get a leg up on the other guys, but it didn't help DeMarcus Hayes, who was a junior college guy who enrolled early, and you would have said, oh, yeah, that guy's plug and play. Well, no, he didn't. He redshirted, didn't play. So I've heard some early good buzz on Devod Wilson, so that may help him. But, Tyson Campbell maybe just like Andrew Thomas last year where, and don't forget, these guys get here June 1. So they miss out on spring practice and all of the, spring activities, but it's not like they arrive here August 1st. They get here June 1, and we started to hear buzz last year about Andrew Thomas, like, pretty early in the summer because it was pretty evident when he got here that the kid was ready to go. Some of that being his preparation in high school. So that's the other thing is a guy may not be here at UGA in the spring, but if he was prepared very well in high school, if he played in a system that was pretty similar, he had a high school coach or a position coach that had a pretty strong background in college and was able to get him, ramped up for Georgia pretty quickly, then that is almost just as good sometimes as being at UGA for spring practice.
Let me try to squeeze in two real quick issues before we let you go. Quick caveat, of course, you don't get to see a ton of the practice. None of the media does. But did you notice anything about Justin Fields' first practice? You're also watching every other play and trying to take role and everything else. But did you any buzz coming off the first practice from Fields? I mean, anything that you can tell us about that?
No, not yet. Just didn't see enough.
All right. And then on Zamir White front, I talked to Mike Johnson about this yesterday. A running back who's at practice, watching a little bit right now, not able to kind of go through drills. How would you compare what Zamir did in his first spring practice to maybe Nick Chubb in 2016, who was able to do some drills, but not in a full go? What was the difference between White yesterday or the other day and Chubb back in 2016?
This is another one I have to say that I didn't see enough. I saw that he was running on the side, but our first look at the team in several months, had to take roll, had to look at a bunch of other things. We had 13 minutes. I saw that he was running. I did not get a chance to study him very well. It does seem that he's a little ahead of schedule than what they've thought. Kirby didn't want to say that meant he's ready to go in the preseason or in the season or anything. But that's there haven't been any setbacks at this point.
All right, Seth, good stuff from you. We'll look forward to catching more from you at DawgNation.com in the days ahead. We appreciate your time on the program. We'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you later.
Let's take a look around the rest of the league. This is SEC Through.
Real quick reminder before we do our SEC Through here, as I say this on a Thursday, tomorrow is the day that I'm going to be at the Atlanta International Auto Show. I'm actually really excited about this. I think that auto shows are just cool in general. I like seeing a bunch of cars in one place, and they do a really good job of making this a great show, whether it be the Marvel, superheroes, the Star Wars stuff. There's a lot of stuff for the whole family, a lot of stuff for kids, and it's a really kind of a nice thing to bring your whole family to. It's going on all throughout the rest of the weekend. It started on March 21st. It's all the way through March 25th. I'm going to be there tomorrow. That's Friday, March 23rd from 1 to 3 p.m. But you need to make sure you are there, too, because, listen, if you're in the market for a new car and you want to compare a bunch of vehicles at one time at one place, there's no better place to do that than the Atlanta International Auto Show at the Georgia World Congress Center in downtown Atlanta. Go to the website, GoAutoShow.com. That's GoAutoShow.com for more information about it. But it's the Atlanta International Auto Show all the way through the rest of the weekend. I'm looking forward to being there tomorrow representing DawgNation there. Time now for our SEC Through. Of course, I hope you'll check out SEC Country Live, 3 p.m. Eastern Time this afternoon on the SEC Country and YouTube Facebook pages. Looking forward to a lot of that. Really excited about a bunch of stuff to get into. One of the things that we will talk a little bit more about is the Tua Tagovailoa injury from Alabama's first spring practice. It is a thumb, we were told by Nick Saban. Tua goes to Birmingham, going to be out for a while. AL.com, among the outlets kind of providing an update. I believe AL.com had this first, if I'm correct. But it's a sprained thumb for Tua. Apparently, it's one of those deals. You see this with quarterbacks all the time. It's sort of the follow-through on a passed ball hits an offensive lineman's helmet that leads to a sprained thumb. Nothing about the AL.com report makes you think this is going to be a serious injury for Tua in any shape, form, or fashion. He's expected to return soon. The word soon was used in the description by AL.com. Maybe that means even before the A-Day game for Alabama. I think I said this yesterday, and y'all know I'm half kidding, half serious when I say this, but it almost couldn't work out better for Alabama. Tua's going to be fine, but it gives Jalen Hurts some reps at practice. He doesn't have to sort of suffer by comparison to Tua, who's just a much better quarterback, and all in all, it's just much better stuff there for Jalen Hurts, and then Tua's going to come back and be fine. He'll eventually be the quarterback, but maybe all of this sort of subterfuge ends up keeping Jalen Hurts from transferring. It probably falls into Saban's lap exactly the way that he would want it to there. Speaking of spring practices, LSU, who started its spring practice way before Georgia did, has already had a scrimmage. And coming off that scrimmage from the weekend, there's a lot of talk about who played well and how things went. And We see this with all the various SEC schools this time of year. But the reporting, and Nick Suss had some stuff for this up at SECCountry.com, that the defense dominated the offense in the LSU scrimmage. And, of course, there's an attempt, I think, sometimes to sort of spin this by some LSU fans of, see, this proves the LSU defense is going to be dominant. And, frankly, the LSU defense may be pretty good, and it may be close to what we've come to expect LSU defense as being. Dave Aranda's a great defensive coordinator. Adding in a Braden Fajoko, who we talked about yesterday on DawgNation Daily, a transfer defensive lineman, that gives them some beef up front. They've always got a good collection of safeties. Grant Delpit and Jacoby Stevens, that crew will be just like that again this year. If they get the Stanford transfer, maybe they are good defensively. But if you're LSU and the defense is dominant, that means that the offense got dominated. And that is not changing the narrative the way that Ed Orgeron needs for it to be changed. I think Orgeron, I have a hard time seeing him getting fired at any point in time after the 2018 season. He's probably got a third season coming at LSU no matter what. But if they don't get better on offense, they don't recruit a quarterback for the class of 2019, there's going to be some tough stuff to deal with here. And offense getting dominated in a scrimmage, even if it's the first scrimmage, that's probably not great news for LSU. I thought Andy Staples had an interesting piece at SI.com. He was asked about Will Muschamp at South Carolina, and he said that, and I'm going to paraphrase here, but to the extent that he underachieved at Florida, he is overachieved by an equal amount at South Carolina. Is it true that Muschamp's overachieved at South Carolina? I'm not so sure about that. I think that South Carolina is a program that you can win. Maybe not the same degree Georgia, but compared to most SEC schools, I think South Carolina is just fine. I think Muschamp's actually a good coach. I think that he got off to a rough start at Florida, but if you gave me a choice of Muschamp or Mullen to lead my program, I absolutely would choose Will Muschamp in that regard. I think South Carolina is the second best team in the East this season. I think that may be true for the next couple of seasons as well. Drew Lock, the Missouri quarterback, has talked about Derek Dooley's new offense at Missouri. Remember, Josh Heupel leaves Missouri to go be head coach at UCF. New offensive coordinator is Derek Dooley. Locke says the Dooley offense is going to be a little easier to understand. Does that lend itself to a better production or equal production? I'm not quite so sure. I think Derek Dooley is one of the great unanswered questions in all the SEC this season. How does he take over for Heupel? Don't forget, Georgia goes on the road, by the way, to Missouri later on in the season. And, by the way, one more point here. Tony Barbie, the Auburn coach, a former Auburn coach who kind of tweeted the laugh emoji when Auburn was getting blown out the other night. He says that tweet wasn't meant for Auburn. Most people don't believe that, and we'll make that your SEC through. All right, and as we get ready to wrap up our program today, of course, we do this every day. If you're watching on video, I have Eddie on the set for a reason because, well, we just want to remind Georgia fans as much as we possibly can that there are a lot of rivalries. A lot of teams that Georgia fans don't like. A lot of games are important for Georgia to win. But for us here on DawgNation Daily, there is none more important than the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. The game against Florida that comes up every October, we believe that's the game that represents the rivalry that matters more than any other for the Georgia Bulldogs. And that's why we do our Gator Countdown every single day here on DawgNation Daily. And 219 days from right now, Georgia goes back to Jacksonville and gets another win over those lousy, stinking Gators. And won't that put a smile on our face and our buddy Eddie's face here, too? We do the Gator Countdown every day here on DawgNation Daily. What we have not been doing every day as of late, though, is our DawgNation Daily Double. Forum.DawgNation.com is the place where it's posted. No Daily Double coming up today, but we'll have one again soon for you. And see you tomorrow here on DawgNation Daily. And for those of you who are with us on video, we'll look forward to getting some of your comments on everything going on. And for those of you who do enjoy the DawgNation Daily Double, that is something that we want to make sure that we do due diligence with and do a good job with. Frankly, we've just had a million things going on here. And, this is one of those things that we're still trying to work out and sort of figure out how it fits into the schedule of kind of everything else that's happening during the broadcast day here. So we hope to be able to get back and do that again soon. And we'll at least do it a few times a week through the off season here, if not every single day. Obviously, that's still something we're sort of tinkering and toying with just a little bit. All right, let me pull up the comments here. We'll get some comments going. We got plenty of time for a good many comments today. This is the earliest we've been done with the show in quite some time. Pretty impressive, actually. All right, let me dive in here and get a few of these. Mike Lage, and I hope I pronounced that correct. Lage, maybe? Lage says, BA, please explain again where we can buy the Braves hat with the G. So the place that I have seen them is in the Braves clubhouse store. If you ever go to a SunTrust Park, Battery, Atlanta, the clubhouse store is not just open during Braves games. It's like a business like anything else. They have regular business hours. So if you ever go over there to eat lunch, Battery Atlanta's got the I forget a lot of those restaurants' names, but they got a bunch of restaurants over there. So you can go over there and have lunch. There's the Braves clubhouse store there. And in the clubhouse store, they have like a lot of Georgia's not the only SEC team they have a marketing tie with, but the Georgia stuff to me is the coolest stuff, as you might imagine. But it's the Braves logo. It's like a red and black. You have T-shirts, you have hats, you have all that kind of stuff. Red and black, Braves logo with the Georgia G on the side. Go to the clubhouse store. They may sell it online too. You may check out AtlantaBraves.com to find out more about that. But I know in the Braves clubhouse store they have that. Darian Ford says, can you show the graphic? What graphic is that, Darian? Tell me what graphic you're referencing, and we'll see if we can get it up there. Darian Ford says, for the Braves G hat. So I tweeted this like a year ago, almost exactly a year ago. So I'm not quite sure that I'm going to be able to scroll back and find it in time, but maybe I will try to do that overnight, and I'll give it to our friends over here, and we'll see if we can get it on the screen for you tomorrow. Matthew McGahee says, BA, do you think that the defense can become great quickly this year? If so, why? Daily. Matthew, appreciate the daily there. And, listen, I think that the defense for Georgia does have a chance to be great once again this season, but maybe great in a slightly different way than it was a year ago. There's obviously no Roquan Smith. And listen, Georgia may have some very good interior linebackers, but I don't believe that there's anybody that comes close to matching what Smith was able to do for Georgia last season, but it doesn't mean that the defense can't still be top-notch. I think the secondary overall has a chance to be better. DeAndre Baker's a year older. I think that Tyson Campbell's eventually a starter. I think that Campbell just physically is more talented than any defensive back that Georgia's had in a long time. That's potentially an upgrade. I think that while Lorenzo Carter and Davin Bellamy were sensational, I think the guys like Walter Grant, DeAndre Walker are going to be just fine. And, you already hear good returns on Brenton Cox, who I think looks fantastic. He's a guy that I think contributes the overall depth of pass rusher that Georgia has at the outside linebacker position is going to be pretty good. And obviously, even though Georgia loses Trent Thompson, Georgia's still solid with its defensive tackles and its defensive linemen. So for me personally, even though there's a bunch of new names, I don't have a lot of concern about the Georgia defense as of right now. I feel like that by the time this team gets to South Carolina for week 2, this is a defense that opposing offenses are very concerned about. Chris Dub C. Carter says, shout out to my nephew, Reggie Carter, and all the other seniors who attended the 2018 UGA Pro Day. Chris, that's absolutely right. Really proud of the career that Reggie had at Georgia, and look forward to seeing him have a chance to make good on his NFL dreams. That's a really exciting thing to think about, Chris. Thanks for checking out the show here today. Jacob Lee Mahaffey says, do you think there's another let me scroll down and get this again. Jacob Lee Mahaffey says, BA, do you think there's another Andrew Thomas in this year's group of freshmen? Yeah, I think that now, if by Thomas you mean tackle, I'm not quite so sure. But if you mean, freshman who comes in really ready to give it a go, I think his high school teammate Jamari Salyer may very well be able to do just that. And, when we had Seth on the phone a moment ago, this subject kind of came up of, Thomas is not an early enroll. Thomas was not an early enrollee. Jamari Salyer is not an early enrollee, but that doesn't mean that they're not doing some work right now and getting prepared. Pace Academy, because of its academic rigor, does not allow its seniors to be early enrollees. You have to finish second semester to get your degree from Pace Academy and therefore be eligible to play at the next level. But the trade-off there is that Pace is a program that really prepares you both academic and athletically for the next phase of your life. For instance, Terrence Edwards is a guy that's worked as a coach there, working with the wide receivers. That's a level of instruction that you get at a school like Pace, and I would imagine both physical conditioning kind of the same way, strength and conditioning, weight room work. I would imagine that Pace is giving you a pretty good workout there. So because it's a really good school, Salyer, even though he can't be at Georgia right now, is probably going to come in and be ready to go. The same way that Andrew Thomas was capable of earning early playing time a season ago, I would think that Salyer is that kind of guy. Now, there may be other seniors, or I should say other freshmen who are like that for Georgia too. As y'all are all aware, though, it's just a lot harder to beat out a Lamont Gilliard because he played well last season, especially the second half of the year. Kendall Baker seems to have a question mark by his name right now, but, Baker had some moments too, to say nothing of what happened over at the right guard position, where I think Ben Cleveland came in and really solidified that for the second half of the season. These are not guys who are cemented as starters, but they're not as easy to beat out as maybe some Georgia offensive linemen might have been in recent years. Controlus Tyson says, I think Natrez Patrick's going to be a beast. Yeah, I mean, I think that it's all good and all go for Natrez, and my expectation is he'll have a really good year for Georgia. Controlus, I think that's a really good thought. Emory David Davis says, great to have quality depth at all positions, the Kirby effect. And that's true. I mean, I continue to believe that college football is a really simple equation. It's the team that has the most good players. And you can, make a big deal if you want to about schemes and, all the sort of fancy football talk. People like to sort of, dribble into this kind of stuff. But show me a game in which the team that had better players isn't favored to win and doesn't usually win. That's just the overwhelming data point that seems to sort of, suffocate everything else. Better players equals more wins, and that's what Kirby Smart's bringing to Georgia right now. Mark Godfrey says, what about Nate McBride and Richard LeCount? Do you think they're going to get more playing time this year? I think the answer is yes on both fronts. I think maybe a little bit different for LeCount in that, he was working first-team safety on the first practice. Was it Tuesday? I think it was Tuesday. These days start to run together. First practice for Georgia was on Tuesday. He was working first team there for that. He is I think he's probably going to be a starter for Georgia this season. In the case of Nate McBride, I think McBride's a contributor. I don't know that I have the same level of confidence that McBride's going to earn a starting job, but I believe that LeCount is. But they're both going to be playing more. Doug Rayburn said Lamont Gilliard had a rough national championship game. That's probably true. The interior of the Georgia offensive line had a little trouble that day against Deshaun Hannon and Raekwon Davis. That's not. I won't deny that, and that's one of the reasons why people look at those guard and potential center spots as a place where you could see some attrition, some new blood, maybe beating out somebody else for a starting job. I think changing a guard is probably a little easier than changing a center, even though Georgia's got, I think, at least three guys between Erickson and Trey Hill and Jamari Salyer who would all potentially project as pretty good centers. They're all three, I think, capable of playing the position. Center and quarterback cohesion is probably pretty important. I think that center is a change that you don't make unless you have to. So maybe Gilliard gets a leg up on that. I think if Gilliard had a bad national championship game, for the most part, I think most people would say that Gilliard had a pretty good season. So I think that you have a little bit of a bias in favor of continuity when it comes to the center position, but the guard spot's probably up for grabs in a big way. B-Mo Menifee says, who do you think is going to be the next commit other than Owen Popo? I mean, Georgia fans would love for Owen Popo to make it official and commit to the G, as the saying goes. That's obviously potentially a great addition to Georgia's 2019 class. And as far as the predictions on the next commit, I never get that stuff right. In terms of who's the sort of the next to sign on. But I do believe that the next few weeks are going to be filled with good recruiting news for Georgia. The guest list for a G-Day is growing in a big way. And I told y'all the other day, I love this time of year when, you start hearing about, so-and-so is going to be coming to Athens for G-Day. And, you've got some of those other unofficial visits sort of sprinkled around that. I love Kirby's approach to this in that you don't really hear about a lot of like elite junior day stuff at Georgia, these big, circus tent atmospheres where you bring 1 million recruits on campus. And, Tennessee, you will bring, a gazillion guys in at one time and say, oh, look who we had on our campus. And Florida does kind of the same thing. Georgia doesn't have, as much of that. It's a lot more quiet, under the radar, individual attention. But it's that individual attention sort of compounding over time that ends up, I think, making the biggest impact on recruits. So I love the way that Kirby's going about that right now. Trey Duke says Mark Webb starts this year. I'm calling it. I'm assuming that Trey means a defensive back. That'd be interesting to see. Doug Raymond said Isaiah Wynn manhandled Deron Payne in Mobile. Is that right? I didn't see a lot of the Senior Bowl stuff, but that's interesting. I didn't realize that. William Simmons says, I like Otis Reese to come in and be that hybrid safety linebacker like Thomas Davis. The kid's going to be nasty. Yeah, I know there are a lot of expectations for Reese when he does get here, and that description of Thomas Davis, that's one that's been used a good bit, even from time to time here on DawgNation Daily, and it's great to think about. I mean, I do think that, and Kirby was very clear about this, that he brought he brought Reese here to be a safety, but he does bring some of that linebacker mentality in terms of being a thumper and being a little bit bigger version of a safety, and I think that's pretty exciting. I think that could be a lot of fun. Mickey Brady talking up Nate McBride. Yeah, McBride's speed's there's no question about that. He's obviously got a bit of a hitter's mentality too, so I'm excited about seeing Nate McBride as well. Chris Farrell said, to go back to the Lamont Gilliard issue, the national championship game, Chris says, not many people had a good year against Deshaun Hand last year. But that's why we keep bringing in Bama beaters. Yeah, I think sometimes people get a little bit irritated. I'm going to go to the YouTube comment section after this. I apologize for spending so much time on the Facebook at the neglect of YouTube. We'll go to YouTube here in a second. Let me just piggyback off this comment before we do. I think that sometimes people get a little bit irritated by the constant comparison between Georgia and Alabama. That grows a little weary and tiresome for some people. But I love the phrase that the commenter just used there, a Bama beater. Somebody that can come in and help you beat Alabama, because there is a specific player type that makes that possible. If you look at Alabama, and this is one of the things I like about that program, and I don't like Alabama, but I like this, that in every single position group, the prototype Alabama player is just a little bit bigger than the prototype for other other programs. So, it's a bigger defensive lineman than even big defensive lineman in the SEC. It's a bigger offensive lineman than even big offensive lineman in the SEC. Defensive backs, they don't necessarily want their cornerbacks to be too heavy, but they love their idea of cornerbacks being tall. It's like they just have this sort of extra size quotient because, players are hard to find as it is. When you then sort of put another identifying characteristic where you say, I need an athlete that can play at this level, and he's also going to be this tall, or he's going to be this big, it just makes it even harder to find guys who can play. That's why some programs don't commit themselves to that same kind of standard. But Alabama's the one that's been winning all this stuff. They won the national championship. Before that, they won 3 straight SEC championships. So if you want to be there, you got to have guys who, and I love that phrase once again, the idea of a Bama beater. You got to have some Bama beaters. You got to have some guys who are just as big, just as strong in the defensive backfield, just as tall, wide receivers just as fast. And that's what Georgia's doing right now. And I think it's really kind of fun to watch it take place. It's not easy, and it takes more than a couple recruiting classes to get there. Georgia's going to keep its foot on the gas for 2019 and really beyond. But the notion of building a roster that does look like Alabama's, with just a little bit bigger, just a little bit more athletic, just a little bit faster guys at every single position, that's really the only way to do this. All right, let me go to YouTube here, and I apologize for not talking with the YouTube folks here on the show today, but I want to get some of those in right now. I know a lot of you really enjoy watching the show on YouTube every single day. Dapper Dan says, I can't wait for LeCount to settle in as a starter. He's going to be a good one for us, and the excitement over freshmen make people forget about sophomores who didn't play much last year. I think that Dan's right about this. I need to make sure we do plenty of this on DawgNation Daily, because this is a really good point to bring up, that your excitement level for elite recruits in their second year ought to be just as much as it is for the new blood that comes in this year. For instance, we're going to do a lot on 2018 stars to watch, breakout names. I love doing that kind of stuff. We're going to do a lot of that on DawgNation Daily. But it's just as significant to say who from 2017 that we did see play some or didn't see play at all, who from 2017 is now ready to do even more in the upcoming season. That's really how you get great, right? It's Richard LeCount in year 2. It's redshirt freshman Isaiah Wilson after a year of going through college strength and conditioning and nutrition and watching how the game is played. It's that redshirt freshman. I mean, that's how you really get good. McCole Hardman's a great example of that. McCole Hardman, as a first-year guy in the Georgia program in 2016, not really a consequential player. In 2017, we were talking about him every single Monday. After every single Saturday game, what he did on special teams, what he did as a wide receiver, he was sort of all over the place for Georgia. Those second-year players in 2018 are going to be a lot like that in terms of how good Georgia actually becomes. Rotary Drift Dream says Matt Landers is going to show out. Going to be a nice option to see Fromm throw some quarter feint to the end zone. The same, I think he's referencing the Javon Wims play, saying maybe Matt Landers is catching that this year. I know a lot of people really like Landers a lot. Christopher Rule says, hope that a lot of attention is being paid to week 2 at South Carolina this fall. Week 2, the Gamecocks being second only to Georgia cannot be overlooked. That is a really important game. And I do think that Christopher's right, that by playing it early in the season, it sort of magnifies its importance. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Enrique Murillo says, BA, who's your favorite freshman for the 2018 class? The name that I'm kind of fixated on right now is Brenton Cox. I'm just telling you, I like the way that young man looks right now. He is he's one of those guys that I think could have a huge impact, but I hate to say that at the expense of a Cade Mays or Jamari Salyer, because I think that both those guys along the offensive line could be a big reason, even though they don't earn the starting jobs. They could be a big reason why the offensive line is even better, because imagine how well you have to perform at practice to beat out a Mays or beat out a Jamari Salyer this summer. I want to make sure I mention them. Now, there's also a chance that by the time we get to the fall, and if Zamir White's healthy, then, we're going to have to do an entire second DawgNation daily every day just to focus in on the things that Zamir White's doing, because if he's healthy, I've been told that he's pretty much a sure thing. So we shall see on that, but that's a great question. Keegan Montgomery says, what's the latest with Owen Popo? We'll talk to maybe Jeff about Popo when he's on the show tomorrow, but my understanding is that the flirtations that Popo has had with Auburn, and we covered that not too long ago, and the visit to Tennessee, I don't think that's done anything to change what most of the industry would probably say, which is still that Popo is a strong lean in the direction of Georgia. We've seen a lot of scuttlebutt, if you'll permit me to use that word. We've seen a lot of that about Popo at other places recently, but it has never caused my confidence to waver that Popo ends up being in Georgia. Christopher Rules checking in from San Diego. How about that? Enrique Murillo says, B.A., this was a short show. This will be the second win against LSU in a row if we leave with a victory in Baton Rouge. It's kind of nice to think about. Building winning streaks against these SEC teams, including a team that Georgia doesn't play a lot in LSU, but that's a good program to have a winning streak against. And we were a little shorter today, but we weren't that much shorter than we typically have been. Honestly, I'll tell you that my general rule is during the season, we try to go about 45 minutes or so with the regular broadcast. During the off season, and that's true for the recruiting season as well, we try to go about 45 minutes. During the off season, we try to chop it down to around 35 or so. We try to shave off, 5 minutes or so off the show here. Now, I will say that there has been a lot going on lately when it comes to like some of the spring practice stuff that as of yet we haven't had a chance to talk about. It could be that spring is too busy to do 35 minutes. We may have to go back to the sort of the slightly longer show, but in general, I try to keep it a few minutes shorter. Now, we stay on the air for a full hour every day, no matter what, but in terms of what the official broadcast is, that's probably more than some of y'all care about, but that is kind of the thought process we have there. Alan Verbanchik says, I know a lot of Richt-only fans that thought Kirby was a bad hire. It would not last 3 years. So, I will admit that when Kirby Smart was hired, I was pretty skeptical. You can find some stuff on the internet where I've written about this before. And it's not that I thought that Smart was going to be a failure. I just thought that maybe Georgia fans were getting a little too excited about the fact that he was a UGA graduate. I didn't think that necessarily, suggested success. Doesn't hurt. It's sort of fun to have a UGA alumnus leading the program, but it wasn't in itself a guarantee of success. Defensive-minded coach as opposed to offensive-minded coach. We'd seen more offensive guys be successful. Experienced head coach versus inexperienced head coach. There's a little bit of a concern there on that front. But what we did not realize is that Kirby Smart was just ready. He was just ready. He had a vision and a plan, and he started executing it from the word go. And I'm sure the people that hired Kirby Smart, the boosters that suggested his name, the administrators who kind of signed off on it all, I'm sure they'd love to sort of pat themselves in the back and say, hey, this worked out exactly the way we planned. But the truth is, I don't know if it really is possible to sort of see the future when it comes to guys like this. The inexperienced coach who goes on to be an all-time great, the inexperienced coach who goes on to disappoint, I'm not sure they look that different to the naked eye when you're evaluating resumes looking to make a hire. Georgia has made itself a tremendous hire in Kirby Smart, and I think it's a combination of a lot of things, luck probably included in that somewhat. Alan Verbanchik says, even after Kirby pulled a number 3 class, his first recruiting class, they still said he would not last 3 years. There is some truth to that too, Alan, that even after the recruiting work of the 2017 class, and so many of those guys made impacts this past season, there was even some holdover doubt and concern even after that. What was kind of funny is, and I'll give Jeff Sentell credit for this. He was saying this on DawgNation Daily last summer, that while there was some sort of media fan, outsider talk about hey, what's going on at Georgia with Kirby Smart? Have they made a good hire? Was this a good decision? There was a lot of confidence within the program and a lot of confidence among recruits. They knew they were going to put another good class together for 2018 way before any of us did. Certainly me here on DawgNation Daily. I don't mind telling you that. So pretty clearly, in life, you don't see that many examples of true vision executed as steadfastly as what you saw and have seen and continue to see with Kirby Smart at Georgia. A couple more comments. We'll get ready to get out of here. Stacy Hinman says, BA, is that shirt for your 3 p.m. gig on SEC Daily? Yeah, so this is the SEC Country shirt. I try to wear the SEC Country stuff from time to time. I know some of y'all don't like it when I don't wear red and black, but I do try to wear the SEC stuff from time to time. Miriam Martin Corbin said, I wanted Kirby after the 2012 loss to Alabama. Well, you've got him now, Miriam. I'm sure you're enjoying every bit of that. Jacob Lee Mahaffey mentioning Tyler Clark. That's going to be a great name to watch for Georgia this season. There's no doubt about that. Let me hit up YouTube here before we get ready to get out of the program. Christopher Rule says Kirby's making Georgia look very smart. Yeah, there's that's really true. New Level Recruiting says McColl could have been great as a freshman, but Kirby didn't use him that much. Yeah, and so, New Level, my thought on that is that I thought it was a worthy experiment to try McColl at defensive back. And it didn't work out. Now he's at offense, and he's doing what he's doing. But if he could have been a cornerback, that would have been awesome for Georgia. He's going to be a good wide receiver, and Georgia fans will be glad of that as well. A lot of spring stuff coming up here at DawgNation in the next couple days. Make sure you read everything that's posted. I'll be back live with another edition of DawgNation Daily tomorrow. Jeff Sintel will be on the program. A lot of those recruiting questions that y'all are asking, we'll sort of pitch some of those to Jeff tomorrow, too. That's going to be a lot of fun. Spring practice is going on. It's really cool to see, and we'll kind of do all of it with you tomorrow. We'll have the audio version, the podcast, posted here real soon, and we'll see you tomorrow for another episode of DawgNation Daily.